Happy Friday, July 16th, 2021. I am Josie Moore of Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Marketing Division, and I'm bringing you this week's Merchandiser Minute. So to kick off our report this week, let's talk about some closes on the board. We had September corn close at $5.56, down 8 on the day. December corn closed at $5.52, down 4. August soybeans closed at $14.55, up 7. November beans closed at $13.92, up 12. Moving on to wheat, we had a close on September wheat at $6.92, up 20. While December wheat actually was so close to that $7 level, we hit $6.99 and 2/3, which was up 21 on the day. It was just another really volatile week on the board, which I think is kind of our new normal, as they put it. It definitely makes it hard for you all to market and mitigate some risks. So feel free to call Robert Harper or I at any point, and we can kind of work you through some techniques and some ideas based on what your typical yield is and how much you've planted, and kind of help you work out that marketing plan, just so we're hedging that bottom side. I know it's a little difficult and it's a little almost scary when there's this much volatility, but feel free to call us. We'd love to work with you all. So now going on to some news stories this week. We had Brazil, the second largest corn grower in the world. They are suffering from a real lack of that second corn crop coming through. They had a really bad timed frost and drought that really hit hard. And with their domestic basis being so high there, a lot of their corn has gone to that. So they're really trying to get rid of a lot of their contracts for exporting. They're trying to do some what they call washouts, so just paying to get out of the contract. And this is actually the highest washout rate Brazil has had in 5 years. And that's kind of why it's significant, because we'll have to see how that affects the rest of the world's export numbers. In contrast to that, Argentina is having a really good time when it comes to planting their wheat. They came out as 96% planted on their 2021-2022 wheat crop this last week, so they're rolling right along, and it also got a high rating of good to excellent. So it'll be interesting to see how that gets infused into the international wheat market. Kind of going off of a persistent story, we've talked about this for a while now, is China having the African swine fever. It's continuing to affect their herds. They have had really high numbers when it comes to regenerating. They've been breeding a lot, but it's still a persistent problem. And what we've seen this last week was the first confirmed case in Germany on a pig farm. They have dealt with African swine fever as a part of the wild boar population going between Poland and Germany, but this is the first one confirmed on a pig farm. So definitely something to watch, especially since hogs are such a prominent consumer of grain products. We want to keep our eye on that and see how that will affect our markets internationally and at home if it ever gets over here. Another issue that continued this week or persisted this week was shipping costs. Honestly, container freight is up 236% from last year. And why is this so significant? Mostly because it makes it super difficult to get container shipments from Asia to the United States and to Europe. And so it makes it really difficult for buyers to be able to export. A lot of Virginia soybeans go via container. So it's definitely something to be on our radar, honestly. And in addition to container freight being super high, we've also dealt with some issues with barge freight from the interior of the United States. So the Mississippi River is exceptionally low right now, with some places reporting this last week to be at 2 foot deep, which is really close to their record low level. And that'll affect barge freights, which these container and barge freights will play into our truck and rail freight rates. And so it's a very complex system that plays into each other. So definitely something to keep an eye on. I know we've all kind of experienced some costs of gas and everything like that going up. And so we'll see how all of those things play in, especially as we come closer to harvest. When we get into our weekly export sales, corn, soybeans, and wheat were all as expected. We had 139,000 metric tons of corn moved this week, most of it going to Japan, and 22,000 metric tons of soybeans, most of that purchased by Indonesia. And our wheat exports totaled 425,000 metric tons. A majority of went to Mexico and South America. What was also in the news this week was our ethanol production was down from expected. It was supposed to be down 1%. It was actually down 2.4%, which is interesting because last week it was a bit up. So definitely a little bit of volatility in there. In the last day, though, ethanol has ticked up a little bit. So it's just something to keep watching, especially with how strong corn prices have been. And then another really interesting thing I want to make a note of is a report came out of Washington this week talking about the producer price surge that we saw really hit in June, and that being the largest gain in 10.5 years, suggesting that inflation is going to remain high with increased demands on commodities. So definitely something to look at as we get those increased prices. I know you producers more than anyone are starting to feel the inflation on all of your input costs. So definitely something to keep an eye on along with that weather. And just call Robert Ryan anytime and we can help you in market and kind of hedge that bottom like we say around here. So I hope you all have a great weekend and stay safe and out of the heat. Thanks.